Hey there, this is Ethan from Sparkbox. I'm doing something a little weird right now. In the spirit of branching out and trying things you haven't done before, doing a little screencast for you. I want to walk you through what the first steps of making a video game looks like. It's something I've always avoided for a very, very long time just because I assumed it would be way over my head, and I was wrong about that. So I'm going to be using an app called Pico-8. And Pico-8 it's an app that lets you make and play video games. And the video games are really, really limited. Like, you can't use many colors. You can only write so many lines of code. All of the music that you make, you can only use 4 channels of audio. So it's very limited, and anything you make kind of looks like NES or Game Boy Color era kind of video games. But that actually makes it really easy to pick up and start playing around with ideas and developing stuff. And it's not very intimidating to jump in and just start building stuff. So that's why I'm using Pico-8, and that's why I like Pico-8. So here we go. And here's Pico-8. This isn't really going to be a game development tutorial. I just kind of want to show you what it looks like and what it feels like to start building a video game. And there's not enough time to get very far into this at all. We're going to end up with something really basic in the end, but I just want to give you a little taste of it, just so you can see it. And this is the video that I wish I would have seen like 3 years ago or something like that to ease me into this. A common game development pattern you might see is these 3 functions. These 3 functions get run at different times in your program, and you can build a game out of just these 3 things. Init happens one time at the very beginning of your program. Draw and update are things that happen over and over and over again. Draw is where you want to handle drawing things to the screen, graphics to the screen. And update is where you want to handle just about anything else. So anything else would be like getting input from users, updating physics, changing enemy positions and doing their AI. Any of that stuff belongs in update. Draw is just for drawing stuff. If we want to start off with hello world, that goes in draw because it's drawing something to the screen. And I'm going to run this, hello world. And you'll see it happens a bunch of times. Remember, draw happens on a loop. It happens 30 times per second. So to keep that from printing multiple times, you clear the screen at the beginning of the draw. So yeah, if you clear the screen at the beginning, you'll end up with only one thing. So next, let's get input from the users. That's something you kind of need for video games. That belongs in update. And I'm going to use a bunch of if blocks with the button function. And all the button function does is returns true or false based on whether or not a button is pushed down. So I'm giving it 0. I'm passing it 0. This is going to tell me whether or not the left arrow key on my keyboard is pushed down. In that case, I'm going to set a variable message to left to tell me which direction is being pressed. And you know what? Up in init, I'm going to set this up to be just a blank string. I'm going to repeat this a couple times for every directional button on the keyboard. So we've got left, 1 is right, 2 is up, and 3 is down. I'm going to change the message that gets set here. Right, up, and down. And then last thing we need to do is just replace this hard-coded string with our variable that gets its value changed. I'm going to run this, and now we've got left, up, down, right, left, right, up, down, up, left, right. Okay, cool. We got input. Next, let's draw a graphic. Now this is a Pico-8 specific thing that I like. Part of the reason why I like Pico-8. You can just tab over and start drawing graphics. So this is going to be very different if you're using a different framework, but Pico-8 just makes for an easier demo. I'm going to draw a little face. It's going to be a sleepy face. an expressionless sleepy face. To draw this to the screen, we want to change our draw function. Sprite, or SPR, is a function that just draws a sprite to the screen. So we drew a sprite. It's sprite number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's sprite number 1. So sprite takes that number, the sprite number that you want to draw to the screen, and then X and Y coordinates. If you remember X and Y coordinates from like geometry class. 0, 0 is going to be in the top left corner. So I'm going to run this. There's our, you know what, he's bumming me out. It's making me sleepy. Looking at that face. There we go. That's a little better. Okay, I can live with that. So that's in the top left. I'm going to get it closer to the middle. This isn't going to be exact. Okay, that's close enough. If we want to move this around to start feeling like a video game, we're getting input here. We're drawing a sprite here. We need to change these numbers to move our little face friend around. To do that, we move these numbers into a variable and then change the value of that variable in here. So that's exactly what I'll do right now. I'm going to set up a table. A table in Lua is a lot like a JavaScript object, if you've written a JavaScript object before. It lets you keep values neatly tied together in one place. If we were adding like health or ammo or something like that the player has, we could also tack that on and keep it in a nice convenient place. But all we need to worry about right now is X and Y coordinates. I am going to fill in our hard-coded values with those coordinates, X and Y. And I'm going to run this just to make sure it's all working. Great. We want it to look exactly the same. And now is where we change these values. So this is I'm going to do a Pico-8 specific shortcut here. This just changes the value of p1.x, and it subtracts 1 from the value and then sets that new value to p1.x. I'm also going to do that for right, but we want to add. So minus, subtracting on the x-axis goes left, adding goes right. And we want to do the same thing for the y-axis, for the up and down keys. That goes to y and y. And we want to subtract to go up and then add to go down. So we change this one. Now I'm going to run this and hit up, down, left, and right. Great. We got something that kind of looks like a video game. Next, let's do a little cherry on top. I'm going to add just a tiny little bit of music. In Pico-8, the sound effects editor and music editor is the same thing. I'll show you what I mean with that. I just drew a sound effect here. Here's what it sounds like. Okay, kind of sounds like a laser or something like that. And you can draw this and edit it. And these points are representing a pitch at a point in time. You kind of hear it go from high pitch to low pitch with a little hump in the middle here. So these are pitches. If you slow this down, you'll start to hear the individual pitches of every note in here. I'm going to slow it down a bunch and then play it again. Okay, that sounds horrible, but it sounds a little bit like like a melody. So I'm gonna start a new pattern. Oh, by the way, this is a different view of the same data. The scribble here I did over here. This is a view of that, and these are the musical notes: A, F sharp, F, E. Those are actual musical notes. So I'm going to write something from scratch. It's hard to do music drawing it out. You're not supposed to do it that way. I'm going to just do a little... melody here. Oh, that's exactly what I want it to be. Okay, I'm gonna copy and paste that. I'm gonna add one more track. I'm gonna do kind of some drums. These are waveforms you can choose. These are effects you can choose. I'm gonna pick this effect that drops the pitch of a note down really fast, so it kind of sounds like a kick drum or some kind of percussion. So I'm gonna use that as like a little beat in the background. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, that's what I want. I'm gonna repeat it a couple times, just copy and paste, and I'm gonna make it a little bit quieter so it doesn't overpower it. Cool. Now I'm gonna combine these two things into one musical pattern, and I'm gonna set it to loop forever here. Okay. It's not my best work, but it's gonna work for our purposes. So all we have to do now is play it from the code, because here we just made it, but we still need to call it and tell the game when to play it. So we want to call it on init and start playing at the very beginning and keep it going from there. So I'm gonna tell it to play music pattern 1 and run. We got something that kind of looks like a video game. Do a little dance. Okay, it's pretty far from a video game. This is the shell of a video game. Not even a shell. It's the first single baby step that you would take for making a video game. But this is something I was afraid to build for a very long time. You have to start with stupid stuff like this and then start working your way up into something that actually resembles a game. So I hope you can see it's really not that hard, and it's not worth being afraid of. Anything that pops up, any feature you want to add or any bug that you find, it's not so difficult that you can't figure it out. You just take those things head on as you run into them, and stop worrying about the future. And then eventually, if you keep going at this rate, you'll end up with a video game in the end. So thanks for following along. I'll see you around the internet.